Hey everyone. So if you're watching this as it comes out, everything is still on track for the turbo. Those who ordered early, so it's still on pre-order, and it's actually on back order pre-order, which means anybody ordering it now is actually going to probably be in July before you end up with one, just because we sold out of the initial stock. But that said, everything is on track. It'll probably come in a little bit of spurts. So the very first orders will ship hopefully by the last week of May or the very first week of June, and then the rest maybe getting into the second week of June. So we'll see on actual shipping. I'll keep you updated, most likely through email. But thought I would go ahead and mention that here. Now what we're going to do today is take the stock tractor, which is what you're looking at right now. We're going to take it back, or take it to the turbo state. Now this isn't going to be an install video, but I thought that we're close enough that I will show you some of the bits and pieces that you haven't seen yet. And you could install it based on this video, but this isn't going to be me telling you in detail how to install it. I'm going to tell you about a part and then I'm going to install it. I'm going to pause and then install it and then come back. That way you don't have to labor through too long of a video just to learn a little bit about the HydrosPlus Turbo Plus. So first thing I'll mention here, and we're on the left side of the tractor as you're sitting on it, let's see here, it goes like this, and there's this guard. It goes in here somehow. I'll be honest, I don't even remember. Oh no, it's like this, sorry. So like kind of like this, but it goes a little bit lower because of the bolts. And the only purpose this really serves is to, or I think it's the only purpose, is really just to kind of guard from the front here, I guess. I really don't know what it does. My recommendation is going to be to take it off, but you can put it back. This one you can put back on. There's another guard on the other side that if you want to put it back on, you're going to have to modify it. So this one kind of, you can take it or leave it as far as when you put it on. I think it goes on top. Just pay attention to how yours came off, because I am bad about that. And so I'll have to go look at another tractor to know for sure. So I'm not going to put it on today, but just know that there is a guard here. So as we get started, just a couple things to note. Now mine does not have, there's a clamp on here, and there may be a few things on yours, like as an example, this comes over, I think, and actually it goes on the guard that I just showed you, and it would connect and kind of hold the wire there. I'm not sure that's necessary, but again, if you want to put that guard on, you can put it on. And there's something else, I can't remember where it was. I don't think it's this one. There's another one that bolts in here. Just pay attention to that. So what I'm going to do from here, I'm going to take the exhaust pipe off, or pipe, take the muffler off, and we'll take bolts off here, pull this away, and then we'll get ready to put the turbo, go ahead and put the turbo on. Let me go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. Sorry, I changed my mind. I was going to go ahead and put the turbo assembly on and then move over to the other side, but it's so easy to get to things here that I'm going to go ahead and leave it off for the moment, and I'm going to address these two things that are a part of the solution. So this here, what you have instead of this, and this is homemade, and this clear tube is here intentionally because I wanted to see if I was getting any oil residue. I mean, I wouldn't know for sure, but as crankcase fumes came out, if they were basically atomized oil, it would, collect. And I didn't really see any come into this, but that's why I have a clear tube here. And then I made this as a test piece, and I just kept it there. Now, what you have is a cover here that has a diaphragm, and what it essentially does, so every engine, no matter what, has blow-by. And blow-by just being during the combustion stroke, some of those gases that expand will get past the rings and get into the crankcase. Years ago, we just vented this to atmosphere. We would have, if you guys are old enough to remember, I've I don't think I've remember ever having a car, but I've seen cars with draft tubes, and basically they go straight down and they use a Venturi effect to just kind of suck out the crankcase fumes, and basically that's how they got rid of them. From an emissions point of view, you want to run those back through the engine, and that's part of what HydrosPlus is doing as a part of this. Often, if you've got huge, performance engines with a lot of boost, what you'll do is you'll run this out to a catch can to catch the oil, or you'll just put a breather on it and just vent it to atmosphere. That's the easiest thing to do. With HydrosPlus Turbo Plus, we're going to move it back into the intake stream and we'll re-ingest those. That's going to be part of what helps us stay emissions compliant, because that is essentially, if you've ever dealt with a PCV valve, positive crankcase ventilation, that's what that does on a gas engine. On a diesel engine, they really just call it CCV, is crankcase ventilation. And this is basically a diaphragm, and it goes directly into the intake, which is on this side. So you can't see that unless you take everything off, but at the end of the day, what we're doing is replacing the diaphragm with this vent and then running those crankcase vent fumes back through the engine and burning them. So I'm going to take this off, and this is not what you're going to get. I'll show you what part you'll get as a part of the solution. All right, we've replaced this with what's going to be the item that comes with the HydrosPlus Turbo Plus. Now, I may in the future end up casting this out of aluminum, but right now we're using, it's actually better than ABS type plastic that's good for, it's like 150C, so over 300 or so degrees, and this should be fine for what we need. Could have made it out of metal, but I thought this is probably the best solution, given all we're doing is just letting gases out of the crankcase. Now, I had it connected here in the test scenario. That'll go away. That's not how you'll connect yours. And my tractor did not have this, and I don't know if it's because mine did have the relocation kit. And by the way, if you haven't relocated, let's see, you're going to need part of the relocation kit. You won't need this tube, but you're not going to be able to run it with the old. I think the other one went beside it here. So if you don't have the relocation kit, that's something you'll have to work out. I think all you actually need is this piece here that holds the air breather on the front, on the firewall, and then this portion that comes with it, but you wouldn't even need it. So what was here, or what I've seen here on other tractors, is the air filter gauge telling you how much vacuum it has, so whether your air cleaner needs to be changed. Mine didn't have that, and maybe it isn't on these because of this and the relocation. I don't know, because I've never relocated one. Every tractor I've gotten has already had it relocated. So that's here, and this piece here, which will come, and I don't even have the clamp on this side. We'll pull this off, but this is all going to stay in the same place. We're going to leverage this, and then we'll also be coming in the top here. And the reason we can't do this exact same kit on a 1023 is because this piece here is on the side down here, on the far side, on the 1023, and that's actually where the stock location, I think, is. Like if you look at the 3TNV whatever, you see it over there in the pictures, but on this particular engine, it's on the top. So they have a few different configurations. But that said, let me go ahead and put the turbo on. I'll talk about those pieces, and then I'll also put the charged, what I would call the charge tube that goes into the intake, so you can see that. Turbo's on, secured, new exhaust riser. I'm going to jump to the other side and come back and do the exhaust. I already have the flange on, but that's because I never took it off when I took it off this tractor. But I'll show you the exhaust in just a minute. But let me go to the other side, and we'll put we'll go ahead and put the intake tube and the charge tube on, and the oil drain, as well as the oil pickup or oil supply, which actually goes here. So I've got most of the pieces on, but we're going to start down here at the bottom of the block, and we're going to talk about this oil pressure sensor, because that's where we're going to pick up our oil supply. You can see it coming up here, going up to the turbo. I'll show you that in just a minute, but the oil sensor is typically in the block here, and what we've done is install the T fitting. Now the block is actually a BSP thread, because that's what the oil sending unit is. So the male BSP, and then we have a female BSP where the oil sender goes in, and then we have a 1/8 NPT that comes out and connects to this hose. Now, this hose will be supplied, but between this hose here and that T, there's a fitting, and what that fitting is an oil restrictor. The amount of oil that comes out of this pressure sensor hole is amazing. It comes out, I can't believe how much it is, and the way I know how much comes out is because I accidentally started it with a hose connected but not connected to the turbo, and it blew out a crazy amount of oil in just a little bit of time. Now that said, when it comes to the turbo, the oil goes into the turbo and then it drains, gravity drains through it. You don't need as much oil as this is sending to it. And it's not necessarily a problem if it sends too much, but at higher RPMs, it does send quite a bit. And if you're in higher RPM situations, and especially if you're in off-camber positions, you're going to have a potential of basically flooding the turbo with oil. If that happens, some of it could potentially go out the exhaust, some of it could go through the intake. I mean, in a really harsh situation, it could cause a runaway turbo, and that's certainly not what we want. I don't think that's going to be a case with any of the things that we're doing, but just to make sure that that doesn't happen, I supply this oil restrictor, and it does have a couple of different jets. So if you think, my recommendation is to go with the smallest one because it still puts out quite a bit of oil. But if you think you want a little bit more, or you can leave it out if that's what you want to do. If you leave it out, basically you could just take the jet out, because you will need the transition between an 1/8 NPT to the JIC fitting here. So let me, I'm going to pause here so I don't shake you around, and I'll show you some of the other things that we've added. All right, you saw we put the crankcase vent device on, and then what I've done now is connected this to the hose that goes back into the intake tube that comes from the air filter and goes into the turbo. That's something else that we put on. So this is custom made, and it goes from your air intake, and it reduces down to the size you need on the turbo. Same thing goes for here. I mean, the turbo is actually quite small. It's a 1-inch, and then it jumps over to a 1.75. So we've got both of those on. They used T-clamps or T-bolt clamps to hold them on. And I showed you from below, this oil line comes up and it goes to the turbo. Let's see here, you won't be able to see it. I'll show it to you better on the other side, but it connects in here. So we'll talk about that when we get on the other side. So this is the other guard I was talking about that you're going to have to remove or modify, and I think pretty much everybody's going to remove it. I've just got it haphazardly in here just so you kind of have an idea of where it goes. It goes kind of like this. I don't really know what it's trying to shield, but it's there. But the other thing that HydrosPlus Turbo Plus that I'm proud of is the ability for us to put a turbo on and not modify it in such a way that you can't go back to what I would call stock, meaning if you decide you don't want a turbo, then you can take it off, and you don't have to get a new valve cover or put some kind of plug. You don't have to drill into the block or anything like that for the oil return. And the idea was to take the oil return and bring it back into, and in the case of a Yanmar, almost all the Yanmars have, well, like the 3TN and 4TN engines, they've got two different oil fill locations because you may mount the engine in different ways for different applications. So what I've done is designed an oil cap so that I could put a fitting into, and then now we'll run the oil drain, which is gravity-fed drain, back into the engine at this point. And we don't have to drill any holes into the block, and we can go back to stock if necessary. Now, when it comes to the Kubota BX or some of the future ones, I'm going to still utilize this same approach if at all possible. But what that means is we're going to have to go into the oil cap, maybe the only single oil cap. That'll make filling and changing the oil a little more challenging, but not really. It'll be similar to the Cooler Plus. Like you are going to have maybe a tougher time changing your battery once every 6 years. You know, an oil change once a year, once every couple of years, depending on exactly what you end up changing, what schedule you change it on. You know, that's not going to be an issue. Now with this tractor, it doesn't matter because we got two oil fill locations, and so the one you can see right back there is still intact, and you'll just fill your oil just like you would before you have Turbo Plus. So the last thing I'll point out, let's see here, is here. Let me see if I've got my, I don't have the cap on it, but you know, this is where you'll, if you decide to, it goes the other way, adjust your fuel, it'll be under here. So we'll pull that off. So now we're going to jump to the other side, put the exhaust on, and we'll be done. This really has only taken me, in actual work, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes. Of course, I do know what I'm doing, where everything goes, but it really hasn't been very hard at all. All right, back on this side, we've got the exhaust on. Now keep in mind, this is similar to the exhaust that you're going to get. This is not the exhaust you're going to get because yours won't be as hacked up as mine, and it's actually a little, it still has all of this stuff. It's just that I've got, like this pipe back here is actually longer. It goes down a little bit further. This is about where this ends up being, and there's, if you remember where the, on the back where the muffler connected, that'll be a brace here, and then we'll also have a brace down here. So this is it. Very simple. Now this here, I was telling you earlier, this is the oil feed. So it feeds into the turbo, basically goes to each one of the bearings, and it drains out the bottom through the gravity feed. I will mention, so you saw the, or just talked about the oil drain. Now I've used a 5/8, which is like a JIC 5/8 or AN10 drain tube, which is a very large drain tube. And I did that intentionally because some of us use this tractor to mow, other things, you may be on odd angles. There's no way, regardless, even if you just drained into directly, just as quickly as you could, into the valve cover, if you end up on a camber like this for a long period of time, that oil will have a chance to back up, and you may smell just a bit come out through the exhaust. Obviously not going to hurt anything, and you're not talking about enough oil consumption that you'd even notice it on the dipstick, but that is a possibility when you have a turbo. Is the reality is you may use some oil, but you're not using it in the scary way, which is blow by and all the other things, right? You're actually burning it through the exhaust, and it would only be in a case that you, again, you'd need to be off camber for a long time. Now, if we hadn't have added the oil restrictor, anytime you went like this for not very long at all, you would definitely smell at least a little bit of burned oil smoke through the exhaust, because so much oil was pouring into here that, you know, it's got to drain to the other side. Gravity, no matter what, it's because our turbo's on the side, it's got to drain back that direction, and if you stay over long enough, you're going to have that situation. Of course, it doesn't hurt anything, and most likely that's going to happen to very few people, if any. But just calling it out as a possibility, and also, you know, to support why having that oil restrictor will keep you from overfilling the turbo unnecessarily. So if you do decide to go with a larger orifice or no orifice in the oil restrictor initially, if you get like a tinge of oil smell or something like that. Now, this is probably only going to happen to people mowing because you're going to be at wide open throttle. People are using different implements at lower RPMs. You're not going to blow as much oil through. You just don't have as much oil pressure, so probably less likely to experience there. But if you're wide open throttle and you're in funny angles for extended periods of time, that's a possibility. don't worry about it. It just is what it is. No matter what vehicle you have, that's always a possibility that some oil will come out through the turbo. And you know, if you know that that's happening a lot because of the way you mow or do something, you may check your oil a little more often, but honestly, I don't think you'll even notice it. We're not talking, even though you smell oil, we're talking about drops of oil, not you know, quarts of oil. So that's it for this video. I am going to take it out here, and I will make another video, but I'm going to take it out here and go ahead and get it warmed up for a few of the turbo encabulator tests, and you'll see those videos showing up soon. Questions, comments, leave them below. Thanks for watching.